Wow, I don't even know how to start this video, man. As you can hear the music in the background, I think you know what we're gonna delve ourselves into. We are gonna be delving into this special game of mine, The Last of Us 2, arguably the best game of all time. I don't know what to say, man. There's so much to say regarding this game. I hope you guys enjoy this video, as I'm gonna be delving into the reasons why I do believe this could be potentially the best game of all time. So sit back, relax, and let's delve into it, man. Guys, before I do so, if you do tend to like this video, the love's always appreciated, the support. We are going to be delving into the best games that have come out and try to tap into your nostalgia, if I must. But yeah, let's go. First and foremost, guys, we're going to start off with the developers themselves, Naughty Dog, who are pretty known in the industry. You know, they've made games such as Uncharted, definitely one of my favorite franchises of all time. They got the Crash Bandicoot games, Jack and Dexter, if you guys know about them, classics, which games we'll be delving into pretty much soon down the line. And this game, Last of Us 2, is an action adventure game that was published by Sony also, so they had obviously their involvement in it. The game was released on June the 19th, 2020 for the PlayStation 4, and it's apparently a sequel from The Last of Us 1. And I know you guys are probably thinking, why didn't I cover The Last of Us 1 first? Because I do think that Last of Us 1 was a very, 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 very good game. I just feel like number 2 was the pinnacle of, for me, it was just the all-time fave. And I can explain my reasons why, because when I was playing number 2, I was kind of going through like a depression stage. And you know, gamers, they always find ways to actually get rid of their depression, and obviously with gaming it normally helps. And The Last of Us 2 was the game that helped me throughout my depression. So that's the reason why I would definitely put The Last of Us 2 as my all-time fave over probably any game.
Read the letter.
And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. But number 1 was pretty cool, and hopefully down the line I'll delve into that for sure. Just to give you a little insight regarding the story itself, so if you haven't not played the first one, I do recommend playing the first one, as the first one does delve into the second one, so it pieces together, to be precise. So the game is set into a post-apocalyptic world where humanity is struggling to survive after a fungal infection has turned people into hostile, you know, zombie-like looking creatures. The main protagonist in the game is Ellie herself, who is now a young adult. So in the very first Last of Us 2, she was pretty young and exposed to quite a lot of things that she shouldn't have been exposed to, but it wasn't her fault. And if you have not played The Last of Us 1, I do recommend playing it, because it makes total sense. And I think that's the main thing about this game, is the story just pieces together and it all makes sense. You know, we have another protagonist who is Abby Anderson, you know, a new character. Her background is quite complex. You know, you don't really know her motive, but as far as I'm concerned, that, you know, Joel, who was the first protagonist in the very first game, had her father killed. And I feel like that's the reason why she managed to get some revenge, and her and Ellie was going back and forth, you know. And yeah, that's kind of like the main thing towards the game itself. But then again, I used to sit there and think that Abby did encounter with Ellie quite a lot, but she didn't want to kill her. You know, Ellie wants to kill her, but when she had the opportunity to do so, she didn't do it. So it's kind of like they were kept going back and forth, but it made sense. I think they all just wanted to pack it all in, but you know, at the end of the day, they all have to come to a conclusion and decide what's the best for themselves. We're going to delve into some of the characters as well. You know, I did mention the 2 main protagonists who were in the game, who is Ellie and Abby themselves, and we're delving into a couple of more right now. When we're talking about the characters, there's so much characters in the game that I was very pleased with, because they all connected. Even though you do not get to play as these characters apart from Ellie and Abby, these other characters really did play a part. And we're going to start off with We're going to start off with Joel. Even though you do not get to play as Joel, there's a lot of flashbacks where Joel does come into the scene, and you know, it delves into like the first one and it shows how he was killed. I do apologize for the ones that have not played the game that I've just managed to give out a spoiler, but surely the game's been out long enough, so what you waiting for, guys? But yeah, Joel was, you know, still one of the main characters in The Last of Us 2 because the storyline is more or less based around him. It's kind of like a revenge thing that, you know, Ellie was not happy about it at all. So mainly the whole game is just her and Abby going back and forth with others, getting themselves involved and trying to eliminate each other. So yeah, Joel definitely played a good role in this, you know, sequel. Also, we have Tommy, who is Joel's brother, that also plays a really important part in the game itself. It's totally understandable on why he's in the game for sure, because obviously his brother dies and he kind of loses it from then, and he has a lot of love for Ellie as well. He tries to look after her, tries to do his replacement job as what Joel was doing. It does work a little bit, but obviously as Ellie's growing up, you know, things does change, and obviously she takes more responsibility for herself. So yeah, Tommy does play a really good important role in the game, and I was really happy with what he delivered. How can we forget this person's name? We have Lev, who's played a really good role, significant role in the game. In my opinion, he was Abby's right hand. She and Abby was pretty much a great combination. They worked well and they were really close friends, you know, and even towards the game, they still stuck with each other through thick and thin, you know, and Abby really had a soft spot in Lev's heart and vice versa. So yeah, Lev definitely played a really good role in my opinion, and just trying her out in the actual what was it, the new mode that they put on was pretty cool to play as her. You know, I really enjoyed it. And we also have Lev as well, who is Yara's sister. You know, she played a really good role as well. Like they all just shared similar abilities in order to help each other, man. They played a really good role within the game, and all they wanted to do is obtain freedom. You know, towards the end, unfortunately, Yara didn't manage to get freedom. She went through quite a lot of hell in order to get her freedom, and she obviously died towards the end. And with Lev not accepting her fate, you know, it was pretty much of a sad moment, man. But yeah, them two played a really important role. I really enjoyed their part in the game, and I feel like without Abby having them two, she would have struggled. She definitely would have struggled. I feel like that's how important their roles were within the game. There was a couple of additionals regarding the game itself in terms of the characters that played a small significant role. You did see some of them quite often, but you know, they weren't too in the game as the characters I just mentioned. So we have the likes of Owen, Nina, Isaac, Mal, and a couple of others who was part of an organization called the WLF, which stands for Washington Liberation Front. So they were all part of this actual team. I'm not too sure if Abby was part of them, but she was with them quite a lot. But yeah, that's the actual federation they was with, and they did a lot with each other. They managed to, you know, encounter quite a lot of enemies along the way, and also get themselves into trouble. And they were standing for their own rights. So they were obviously part of something, and they had a meaning to it. So The Last of Us 2 was played in third person mode, which you can't really see this game playing in any other way. You know, let's talk a little bit about the combat itself, which in my opinion, what makes this game for what it is. It's quite brutal and intense. You know, there's a variety of weapons, a lot more weapons in comparison to the very first one. A lot of stealth as well, where you can take your time, you know, use your stealth movement. And also you can go prone as well, which I found really, really cool. I don't think that you can go prone in the first one. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't recall because it's been a while since I've played a game. But I feel like them implementing prone in the second one was very, very, very good. as you can hide yourself from enemies and hide under, you know, like little spots to not be seen. You know, it was pretty cool, man. And also crafting as well. You know, along the way you're picking up like, you pick up like these books that you learn a skill, and then once you learn that skill, it's kind of like it gives you that, I can't even explain it. It gives you that like feeling like you've already learned the skill, and then you go and upgrade your system, which is pretty cool. You know, so if you didn't understand what I meant, so basically you get this book, for example, how to shoot a weapon hypothetically, and it's like it gives you all the skills that you should know, and all you have to do is just unlock them. And I find that pretty cool, because in order to learn something, you've got to obviously read the book. And I just found that pretty cool, man. I really love the concept of that. Let's delve into a bit about the visuals itself. So a lot of the environments are very detailed. It allows you to explore the actual game itself. You know, it's not rushed, if that makes sense. You know, there's times where I was on the horse and I was just exploring. The game takes its time, and that's what you want to do with a game like The Last of Us 2. And it had similarities like the Ghost of Tsushima as well, where you can just explore the actual city itself, and also realistic character models as well. It's insane. Like, if you check out my thumbnails on the last it's on my other gaming channel, these character mods were all from the game itself, like the snapshots and stuff like that. It was just incredible, man, how you can have such good graphics and such good gameplay simultaneously. And I felt like that was really good. It's a huge step up in comparison to the very first one. But then again, the very first one did get a remaster as well, and this also got a remastered version. So if you've not played the game now, then I suggest you play it in the best way as possible, because back then, you know, the game was really good back then, but it wasn't even enhanced. So you imagine what it feels like now. And I managed to do both. And I can honestly say that the remastered versions of today is a massive difference. Just stemming off the combat itself, I feel like the combat was definitely a massive improvement in this game in comparison to the very first one. On the very first one, I really struggled on the hardest difficulty, as I did complete. However, I did struggle a bit in terms of, you know, the poor combat system in the very first. I feel like, you know, getting away from the clickers, it was very hard to do so. Whereas they patched this, they did a really good job in amending this in the second one, where you can actually dodge, you know, move around, you know, use your weapons more, use your shivs. You know, I feel like that was really cool, despite the fact that the clickers can, you know, latch onto you quite quick. The very first one really struggled with that, man. I felt like once you was out of ammo, you're just running around like chickens, and that was it. There was just not a concept to it. And obviously on the hardest difficulty, you know, you do lack resource, so it was even worse. Whereas in the second one, when you lack resource, you kind of like, you still got an advantage. You can still get away. You can still like use your punches and stuff like that, and, you know, different types of things. And there's more access to like different things you can use, like objects, you know, bricks being thrown, knives being thrown and stuff like that. I feel like that was obviously a massive improvement in comparison to the very first one. Shouts out to the guys that actually voted this game to be the game of the year back in 2020, because it really deserved it. And I know it was going up with the likes of Ghost of Tsushima, so it was kind of like a difficult one. I would have been pleased with both, but I'm really happy that The Last of Us 2 really got it, because it just shows how much effort they actually put into the game itself, and it deserved it. It deserved it. If Ghost of Tsushima did win it, I wouldn't have been mad at all. I wouldn't have been mad, but I'm just glad that The Last of Us really won that reward, you know, because it was well deserved. Right, guys, so we're going to delve into some of the positives and negatives, because I don't want to be fully biased regarding the game itself, but obviously this game is going to have more positives than negatives. We're going to start off with the interaction with everything in the game, and there's not many games like this. And when I'm talking about interaction, I'm talking about the likes of just breaking any window that you see in case you are being chased by any clickers or anything. You know, there's many times that I've sat down there and I thought to myself, could I break in this window and hide? And it actually worked. you know, I just feel like that was really good, man, because there's a lot of things in certain games it won't allow you to do so. I just felt like that was really good, man, with the likes of like shooting lights as well when you need the lights to dim out and the enemies are thinking, you know, what's going on, and also just picking up like bricks and pipes. You know, I just feel like that was just really cool, man, in my opinion. I know some of you guys probably would realize this as I'm saying it, and yeah, and that's one of the positives I would definitely give regarding this game. Also, the story driven, you know, game itself, the story overall just speaks for itself. I've literally delved into, you know, bits and pieces regarding the story. There's quite a lot of characters in order to build this story, and it just all pieces together. There wasn't one stage where I felt confused on what is actually going on in the story itself. Even from the very first, like everything just pieced together and it all just made sense. So story, shouts out to the developers, you know, piecing the story together. And I know they put some time and effort into it in order to give us a good story. Because how many games that you guys play that the story is just, these days, there's just no concept to it. The gameplay might be good, but it's got to have a story to it for sure. And another thing I would mention as well, there's not many boring parts as well. Definitely something that I would mention. You know, throughout the game, it's just full of action. You know, you get your cutscenes from now and then, but even the cutscenes are quite cool because there's just a lot of action in the cutscenes, despite the fact that you might not be playing it. But it was just pretty cool, like, to not have many boring parts. I was always excited to actually play another episode, and you can go check it out on my other channel as well, which is Marvelous Plays. You know, I do walkthroughs on that channel. I've not so long ago got it up and running, and I completed the game. So you guys go through the game itself, you know, enjoy and show some love. Also, the selection of weapons, you know, the weapons were really good in my opinion. You had the likes of the crossbow, you know, assault rifles, you know, different types of weapons, man. There was a variety of them, and you can upgrade them as well, which I found pretty cool. And as the weapons were getting upgraded, there was a lot of attention to detail to upgrading the weapons. It took its time. And you don't just upgrade your weapons just like that. You've got to find resources as well in order to get these weapons upgraded. I just feel like there was a lot of realism towards the game itself, and to be specific, the weapons. So shouts out to developers again doing that. Graphics, we're not going to say too much about the graphics. The graphics were pretty cool. You know, they were getting better and better each time, especially the remastered. I would definitely recommend playing the remastered version, as it's on a whole nother level. And apparently this game is coming out on PC very soon. So I might potentially play on the PC depending on what I'm playing at the time. But it is a long game. I've got to remind you, it is a long game. It's a very long game, so be aware of that. I didn't specifically mention this as a positive, but I'm going to state it now, is the good selection of characters playing the different roles. You know, there's a lot of them that play their own part, and I feel like they just played a really, really wicked part. You know, with the likes of, not even Ellie and Abby, the ones at UB, it's just the others that I mentioned. They played really good parts, man, in the game. You know, with Lev, Yara, you know, Owen, Tommy, Joel, you know, they all had a story to tell, and that's what makes this game really exciting, because you actually delve into their stories a little bit as well. I'm not talking about their whole story, but you can get why some of them are doing the things that they are doing. So for example, you had Tommy, who his brother died, Joel. You know, I think he was in front of him as well. So, you know, his role within the game. So you can imagine the rest of them as well. Also, the combat and stealth, massive improvement in comparison to the very first. The stealth is, the thing is, this game doesn't be spoken about regarding the stealth. You know, the stealth is incredible. You know, and there's games that specifically focus on stealth, and I'm talking with the likes of Hitman. And I actually do think that the stealth system on this game is better than Hitman. No word of a lie. Like, it's very rare that you have stealth and combat so good at the same time. There's not many games that can produce that. And this game does everything like literally everything, you know, even going down to like with the prone system as well. Everything just pieces together, because there's times where can I fit under there, and it just worked. That's how you can hear it from a voice on how incredible this game is. So the combat and stealth is definitely probably the main thing in the game and what makes the game so cool. And the last one as a positive that I'm going to say is the exploration, man. Like literally you can experience Seattle itself, you know, in different other places, Washington, so much places you can explore. And for the guys that have not been to these places like myself, it's just good to see what actually goes on in the places, and a lot of abandoned places as well. I just feel like that was pretty cool, man. I love games that allow you to explore different parts within different cities that you might not even potentially go to, or you can just consider going to them. And I felt like that was pretty cool. I know you guys are probably thinking, what's he gonna say negative regarding this game? To me, there weren't much negatives for this game, but I have found a couple that I will mention, as I don't want to be too biased towards the game, even though I do believe this is probably the best story driven game that I've played. And the very first one is, you know, the storytelling. I feel like some of the things that you couldn't make the choices yourself, I feel like the game does it itself. You know, as you're watching certain cutscenes, you're like, you want that to happen, you want this to happen, to give you like an option rather than it doing it by itself. I feel like that would have been so good. Like in terms of a twist, I feel like everybody should have had a different storyline. Whereas if I went that way and the other person did that, and then you can compare and say, you know what, I took that route and the other person took that route. I feel like that should have been implemented for sure. It would have been pretty cool. You know, like them games like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human, them type of games where you make your own decisions. I know there's a word for it, but I can't remember right now. I feel like they should have implemented something like that. I feel like that would have been pretty cool, because I weren't happy with a lot of things that went on in this game, and I was unhappy. I'm not gonna lie, because I love this game so much and I didn't want certain things to happen, but obviously it happened. So that's one of the things I would say, that they could do something different if they do make a Last of Us 3, which I've been hearing that it's not in the works, but they're speaking about it. And the last one that I would say is Abby's storyline is overshadowing Ellie's gameplay for sure. Because to me, The Last of Us 2 should be mainly about Ellie, who is the main protagonist. But I feel like Abby was the character that overshadowed Ellie quite a lot. Like, you was Abby way more than Ellie. I don't know if that's just me, and I know you guys probably think the same thing, but that's how I felt. And I'm not saying that Ellie's part was, you know, not important and it shouldn't have been long. I just felt like Ellie was just cancelled out more than Abby. Like, why was Abby's gameplay overshadowing Ellie's? And I had an issue with that, because as I said, the main story should be about Ellie. But yeah, they're my negatives, guys. I couldn't really think of any other negatives at all. And that's the end of what I think about The Last of Us 2. And if you do love this video, guys, as I said, show some support. I will be diving into plenty more games to tap into your nostalgia, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you.